This'll be my first story. I title it Daydreams. I remember I was sitting in class when I first saw it. Miss Weaver had been my teacher for a few months and was known around Stagwood Elementary for a stack of black hair that rose a foot above her head. Before the school year started, before the school year started, I'd heard a few rumors about her, and within a week, I realized that they were all true. For one thing, she did, in fact, wear the same outfit every single day. See, the colors changed, but she always had striped pants on and a striped jacket. For another thing, she was mind numbingly boring. It was the kind of boring that made your eyes shut without permission. The biggest problem, though, was the stories. She was obsessed with tales of former students who had become some kind of famous. The first couple of times weren't too bad, maybe even kind of interesting, but by the second week of school, she had started repeating herself just like her outfits. By then, I knew all the stories by heart. The professional football player who got excellent marks in math, the state senator who was a teacher's pet, I knew every word. So instead of trying my hardest to listen, I spent most of the class drawing in my notebook. See, most days I drew imaginary places and then spent the rest of the time whipped up creatures to live there. They'd have horns where horns don't go, fur where scales should be, and all the wings you can possibly think of. They were odd, and they each had a story that I wanted to tell, but on that day, I never even got to the first pair of wings. I'd barely gotten started when it appeared, and it changed Stagwood and me forever. If it had chosen to press its little green face against any other window, I might have not seen it. And if I hadn't been trying to decide whether my dragon should have 4 legs or maybe 3, I might have not even looked at the window at that exact moment, dropping my pencil on my little page. See, it was just a frog, and it was staring right at me. I couldn't stop looking at the frog, and it wouldn't stop looking back. We were locked in a staring contest. Maybe some frogs blinked, but with its eyes smushed against the glass. This one did not. Stagwood Forest was just beyond the schoolyard, and it was riddled with frogs, but they always seemed to avoid people. I knew right away, in a way that I could think better than I could say, that this frog was different. I tried to listen back in to Miss Weaver just in time to hear the end of her story about Mr. Martin Chandles, the now famous comedian. Now, Martin had transferred schools halfway through the year, so it felt like to me that one shouldn't count, but that's not the point. We were supposed to be learning long division in mathematics, but something had reminded her of Martin. I knew exactly what bad joke she would say at the end of the story, much less about long division. Whenever he acted up in class, I'd say, "We've got a real comedian on our hands, don't we?" And I was right, she said with a very, very weird grin on her face. See, I was certain that Miss Weaver would see the frog within moments, but I was wrong, because nobody did. And more importantly, when I looked again to see if it was still there, I noticed something new, something shiny. And when I realized what it was, I forgot all about the class and Miss Weaver and Martin Chandles, whatever his name was. There was no denying it. The frog had put a tiny pair of glasses on. I wanted to lecture it to explain that frogs don't wear glasses. It bothered me, but why didn't I already know that? On top of that, it had been staring at me for at least 5 minutes at that point, and that seemed to be bordering on rude. Could a frog even be rude? I wasn't sure, but the bigger question was, why was it so interested in me? Teachers always wrote "needs to participate more" on my reports card with a smiley face to make my parents feel better about it. I don't think it worked though. I never got into trouble and barely stood out on purpose. A few years earlier, I accidentally peed my pants because my zipper had gotten stuck in the bathroom at the last moment. I tried to convince everyone that I'd fallen into a puddle, but no one believed me.